question for sure. Should I start the Patriots defense this week? So I'll go with it. I think the biggest thing that you see against Belichick against Mahomes is that he has got 3 picks in 3 games against the Patriots. So once a game, it does seem like the Patriots get him. They got him on that in the first quarter of the 2019 matchup. It was J.C. Jackson that picked him off. So they do have that sort of spin the dial thing that they do in the secondary. Every once in a while, it has confused Patrick Mahomes in the past. So I think they're good for 1 turnover. I'm not sure that Mahomes will turn it over much more than that, but I think once a game, a pick is coming for Mahomes against Belichick because it's something that Coach Belichick does that he's not ready for.
We have a question from our friend Brady about the last play for the Patriots and Cam Newton against the Seahawks. I'm trying to pull up a couple other questions here on my Twitter account. Things are being weird, but do you think that the Patriots would have gotten a touchdown if McDaniels used a different play?
Okay, well, we've gone over this one a lot, Brady, but I'll give. All right, look, this is the thing. Okay, first of all, everybody sort of looks at that play and says it's the same play call over and over again. It's too redundant. That's actually not the case. Each one of those plays that they called on the goal line, they called it 4 times. 3 times it was a run. 1 time it was that play action pass or that little pop pass to Jakob Johnson. All 3 times that they ran the football in those situations, there were 3 different runs, 3 different schemes. So it's not a redundant scheme. It just looks the same to the layman. But when you actually break it down and look at the schematics of each play, they are different. So I don't think that there was any sort of questioning about that. If you ask me, it was really solely about execution. The blocks didn't hold up the way they wanted it to. And secondly, Cam probably could have cut outside when instead of breaking it inside of Jakob Johnson, if he had bounced it out towards the pylon, he probably scores. So execution, not play calling. I think that's where we're going with that one.
Well, turning the page back to this Sunday against the Chiefs, a couple players came off IR this week for the Patriots, including Damian Harris. So that running back group just added some even more depth. So you've got Sony, James White is coming back, Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, J.J. Taylor. Lewis wants to know, do you think they'll go with all of them during this game?
It's a good question. Damian Harris still needs to be activated to the 53-man roster, to the active roster. He's currently in that window, that 21-day practice window. So we'll find out tomorrow night if both Harris and Gunnar Olszewski are coming off IR officially to play in the game on Sunday. But to answer your question about the running backs, if you ask me, the difficulty here is that J.J. Taylor has probably shown enough in the limited carries that he has had that if you cut him and try to get him back on the practice squad, my guess is he will get claimed in the waiver priority at some point after teams have seen what he can do. So then the question is do you carry 5 running backs on the 53 and just make him inactive on game day as a game day inactive instead of setting him down to the practice squad? My guess is that's the way that they will go, is that J.J. Taylor will end up being inactive on Sunday, Damian Harris taking his spot. They will then also have to fill in a kick returner for J.J. Taylor. Kyle Duggar, Gunner, certainly, if he's active for the game, will be a candidate to take that role over as well. So they got some options there. My guess is that Taylor ends up being a healthy scratch.
We have another question here about players coming off IR and which ones you think will have the biggest impact. I want to focus in a little bit on Gunner. Like you mentioned, he should step right into that role on special teams as a punt kick returner. But he could have a little bit of a role as a wide receiver as well. Do you see them going to him this Sunday against the Chiefs?
I don't know if it will be this week, but I am optimistic that Gunner is going to contribute in more ways than just in the return game. I think the one thing that I continue to harp on is that the Patriots have really been trying to ease Julian Edelman into this season and limit his snaps as much as they possibly can while still, obviously needing him to be out there. So I think Gunner has that ability with a similar skill set to be able to take on some of that Edelman workload and give Edelman a blow and not necessarily have to go to a 2 wide receiver set with only Harry and Damiere Byrd out there, or have to put Jacoby Myers on the field, who really hasn't done much of anything in his second season, even dating back to training camp. It hasn't been that, step forward for Jacoby that many people were hoping for. So I think that Gunner adds a very different dynamic to Jacoby, certainly a more explosive player, better player with the ball in his hands after the catch. So I'm optimistic that Gunner is going to be able to contribute here. If it's this week or in the future, very near future, he's going to be healthy. He's going to be out there at some point.
Question here about Stephon Gilmore and who he'll be in coverage against on Sunday, Hardman or Watkins, or do you think it'll be someone else?
I believe it's going to be Watkins, and that's been their game plan against the Chiefs since the start of 2018, excuse me, when Patrick Mahomes became the starter. It's been Gilmore on an island on Sammy Watkins with basically no help, and then the safeties over the top of Hill and now Hardman, and tracking all the different motions and bracketing Kelsey and doing all that kind of stuff. So Watkins and Gilmore to me is one of the key matchups of this game because Gilmore hasn't been playing like his normal self, I wouldn't say, or up to his normal standard. And he's going to be left alone on Watkins basically the entire game. So it's going to be truly up to him to be able to do that.
And Sony Michel has a great game, and people still just want to rag on him. A question here: do you think Damian Harris would have scored on those two big Sony runs against the Raiders last Sunday?
All right. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. Do I think he would have scored? I don't know. We can't really know for sure by any means. But to appease the question, I think what we did see in training camp was that Damian Harris is definitely a little bit more explosive through the line of scrimmage than Sony Michel. Sony Michel has great patience through the line, and he's able to set up his blocks and read his keys and get through the line of scrimmage that way. Whereas certainly in camp was more of a one-cut runner, put your foot in the ground and go. Does he have that type of breakaway speed? I think it's kind of hard to tell until he gets into the open field and we actually see it in the game, because he doesn't have that breakaway speed in the 40. In 40 time coming out in the combine was right around what Sony's was, a 4.53, 4.52, something like that. So he's not Chris Johnson, right? He doesn't have that kind of runaway speed, but until we see it in the game, you never know. In training camp, he was breaking off big runs. I wouldn't say it was 80 yards to the house all the time, but he was breaking off, 20, 30, 40-yard scampers every once in a while, probably more than every once in a while. So I think we're going to see that.
We have a couple questions here about the Patriots' plan against Tyreek Hill. Do you think they're going to double cover him? Who do you see against him in this Patriots secondary? What's their plan against Tyreek?
Well, it's certainly going to be Jonathan Jones. I mean, Belichick didn't even hide anything this morning, saying that Jones is the perfect type of guy to cover somebody like Hill, who plays a lot in the slot as a vertical receiver. But I think the hardest part about this Chiefs offense is that they got two Hills now, right? They got Hill and they got Hardman, and the Patriots have one Jonathan Jones. So that's what I'm fascinated to see. I know Jonathan Jones is going to be on Tyreek. I know he's going to have safety help over the top, whether it's post-safety help or a dedicated double, we'll find out. But who's on Hardman, and where can they provide help on Hardman in the same way that they're providing help on Hill? That's going to be the big question. Last year in that matchup, Hill was a little bit banged up, so it was kind of either or. It wasn't both of them on the field at the same time.
Denny really wants man-to-man coverage here.
That's what they're going to do. They're going to play man. They're going to put the safety in the middle of the field. You're going to play off that help. They're going to cut off anything that they can cut off. And I think that that's really what you have to do against Mahomes. And the biggest reason why is that if you go too deep, it's probably the best way for, quarters coverage, cover four, whatever you want to call it, with match principles, probably the best way to kind of control a spread offense like these college spread attacks that we see, the air raid stuff. But then you're taking a player out of the box and out of the pass rush. So then who's going to get after Mahomes with only four rushers? So that's sort of the issue that you could run into, and why the Patriots typically go with one high safety is so that they can have that extra guy in the box to do some different things schematically in the pass rush.
More of a game plan type question here, whether or not you think the Patriots will have a run-heavy offense to control possession and try to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, and maybe opt to go with Cam Newton carrying the ball a little bit more often than they have in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Look, this is the strategy if you can pull it off, right? The strategy is to run the ball 40 times, control the clock, time of possession, be up near 40 minutes like they were in the AFC title game in 2018. But there's two concerns for me with this. One, in that AFC title game, they control the ball. They had 44 minutes of possession out of 60 in the first 4 quarters before overtime. But they also faced 19 third downs. And that is different when you have a guy like Tom Brady who's surgical on third down, who can go 13 of 19 and really take advantage of that, right? Whereas with Cam, I don't know if you want to put Cam on third down 19 times. That's not really something that I'm interested in doing. So that's the struggle when you run on first and second down all the time. You're going to get into a lot of third downs, and then it's going to be up to Cam to execute drop back passing game on third down to keep the chains moving. So that's the concern with that strategy. The other concern is certainly that Patrick Mahomes runs up the score on the other side of the ball. And then obviously you can't really run the football if Mahomes has already scored 17 and it's 17-0. You're not going to keep running the ball. So that's sort of what the Chiefs are hoping against every opponent, because their run defense is really not that good. So what they're hoping for is that Patrick Mahomes is going to force people to not run the football because they're up on the scoreboard. And that I don't know if the Patriots can really control that.
We got probably 3 or 4 questions now about Julio Jones and the likelihood of Jones to the Patriots, another big name wide receiver rumored to New England.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
No. Just no. Like these rumors, and I don't want to go ahead and I know who everybody's talking about. I don't want to go ahead and attack him at all, but let's just be very clear right now that Julio Jones is right now, as of Friday at 2:43 p.m., is not getting traded by the Atlanta Falcons. Could that change? Could the deadline come around and could they make a trade or make a move for Julio? Could they end up parting ways with Julio at the end of the year? Maybe. But right now, the Falcons have no interest in trading Julio Jones, and who can blame them?
Back to the game here. You think Kyle Duggar will see limited snaps on Sunday because of, the explosiveness of this Chiefs offense, or do you think Bill Belichick will trust him?
No, I think he's going to play, and I think a lot of the safeties that we see play near the line of scrimmage are going to play. If you ask me, this is when the Patriots unveil the quarters defense, and I don't mean quarters coverage. I mean 7 defensive backs on the field, put all the speed out there, all the athleticism, and don't really worry too much about stopping the run, because if Clyde Edwards-Helaire runs for 200 yards on you, he runs for 200 yards on you. Trust me, it's a lot better than Patrick Mahomes throwing for 250 with 5 touchdowns or something crazy like that, right? So they want to invite the run in this game, but they also want to be able to match up with all that speed. So I expect Adrian Phillips, Jawan Williams, Kyle Duggar, I expect them all to be heavily involved along with everybody that's usually out there in the secondary. So this is going to be a very heavy defensive back game. Last year, the Patriots were in either dime or 7 DBs over 75% of the time in that game. They basically said to their off-ball linebackers, the Landon Roberts, Jawan Bentley, this isn't your game, right? We're going to put 5 guys across the line of scrimmage. Some of those were stand-up linebackers on the line. But regardless, we're going to put those 5 guys. They're going to rush and stop the run. And then we're going to put 6 or 7 DBs behind them to stop all these passing weapons that the Chiefs have.
Questions about the rookie tight ends. We did a whole video on it this week and whether or not we could see Devin Asiasi potentially unleashed against the Chiefs on Sunday. Do you think he's going to make some plays and get involved finally in the passing game this weekend?
Oh, I think they need him to, because really the Chiefs last year, and I'm very fascinated to see how they go about defending Cam Newton a little bit differently than they would Tom Brady, but they doubled Julian Edelman out of that game, especially in key passing situations, third down, red area, things like that. It was, we're not going to let you throw to Edelman. You need to beat us throwing to somebody else. Well, those somebody else's right now are guys like Devin Asiasi and N'Keal Harry and Damian Byrd, and they're going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities because all eyes are going to be on the quarterback and on Edelman. So they're going to have an opportunity to go one-on-one against these other players, these secondary coverage players for Kansas City, and someone is going to have to make a play if the Patriots are going to win this game. So I think Asiasi is going to get a lot of chances. He was open a few times in that Raiders game in the flat on short passes, short routes, things like that underneath the defense, and Cam just was a little bit too greedy and a little bit too aggressive at times in that game and wanted to push the ball down the field and didn't really take what he was getting given by the defense. So I think that there's going to be more opportunities like that for Asiasi, and I'm hoping that the Patriots coaching staff has drilled into Cam this week, hey, it's okay to take the 8 yards in the flat every once in a while because that opens up the downfield passing game.
And assuming Damian Harris is active on Sunday, what are you expecting his workload to be like?
I'm sure they'll ease him into it. There's no preseason. He hasn't practiced in full capacity until this week for a while. So asking him to go out there and carry the ball 20 times, I think is probably unrealistic. But I think that they would like to get his toes wet, let him get a little bit of a taste of some live action. Remember, it's really been since last preseason since he's had true live action because he barely played in the regular season as a rookie. So it's been a while since Damian Harris has gotten onto a football field and played any sort of substantial role. So I'm sure that they'll want to kind of let him get into it pretty quickly.
Question about Michael Onwenu. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be happy to answer. Ashton wants to know, when do you think guards like Onwenu will ever get credit for their impact as a rookie after he was robbed of Rookie of the Month?
That's a good question, and I threw that out there, and I had some people chirping me about how good James Robinson's numbers were, and yeah, okay, whatever. But Michael Onwenu, when is he going to get credit? Probably never. I mean, I think the one thing is that's great about Patriots fans is that we do understand the intricacies and the details of the game, and we have, as a fan base, really given a lot of credit to offensive linemen over the years. Part of it's probably because Dante Scarnecchia is such a big figure in New England, and his face and his name stands out above a lot of other position coaches around the league. He's obviously retired now, but I'm writing about this for Saturday, plenty of Scarnecchia, fingerprints still all over this whole organization, really, but especially the offensive line room. So I think Onwenu is probably never going to get that credit he deserves. He's going to start again at left guard, and we'll see what he can do against Chris Jones. That's really going to be the test. Spagnuolo is going to try to find ways to get one-on-ones for Chris Jones against the rookie, and I'm really interested to see how Onwenu holds up.
And we have another question here about a development we haven't really touched on that much, but is probably very important for this weekend's game. That's James White's return. He's obviously missed the last 2 games due to a personal tragedy in his father's death, but he's coming back against the Chiefs. How important is that for this Patriots offense?
Really important in this specific matchup because I just talked about how guys like Asiasi and Harry and Bird are going to get one-on-ones with the whole defense really paying attention to Edelman and Cam. And the similar thing with the running backs, and especially on first down, if the Patriots can throw the football with the Chiefs linebackers, true linebackers on the field, that's really where the weak point of this defense is their off-ball linebacker group, very similar to what the Patriots' weaknesses are. So if they can get those guys on the field because they're in run formations, because they're going to have a power running attack and a really run-heavy game plan, then maybe they can get those one-on-ones for James White against the linebacker in the flat or in space, and we know how that looks when he's able to get those types of matchups. So I'm really fascinated to see what the Chiefs do, like I've been saying, schematically to cover up all these players that the Patriots have, because a guy like the Honey Badger could end up being on James White in a lot of man-to-man situations, and that might not be a matchup that favors the Patriots too much. But like I said, if you throw on first down with those Chiefs linebackers in there because you are in a heavy package trying to run the football, then maybe they can get some good matchups for him.
We have a question here about who's going to get the job to cover who's going to get the job to cover Kelsey on Sunday?
Course. I think that Kelsey is one guy that we're not talking enough about going into this game. I think it's 2 reasons. One, you get so enthralled by the speed of Hill and Hardman and Mahomes' talent, obviously. And 2, the Patriots have done a pretty good job of limiting Travis Kelsey over the last couple of matchups. And the one thing that Bill Belichick, I think, does more than maybe any other team that goes up against Kelsey is jamming him at the line of scrimmage. When every single chance he's in line, every single chance he's got his hand in the dirt, the Patriots put a guy like a John Simon or a Chase Winovich right over him, and as soon as he goes out into his route, it's boom, right in the chest, right? We've seen Dante Hightower do it a ton against him too. So basically what they've done is 2-layer defense. First layer is at the line of scrimmage, bump Kelsey, bang Kelsey, hold him up as much as you can, get physical with him. And then once he gets into his route, J.C. Jackson is sitting there waiting for him, or Stephon Gilmore is sitting there waiting for him. And he's got some, he's already being slowed by the jam, and then he's got to go ahead and run a route and get open. And I don't know if, the Patriots have had great success with that sort of plan. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I expect we see a lot of J.C. Jackson again on Travis Kelsey because he's done a really good job against him. Maybe Jawan Williams gets some chances at him as well. But like they did with Waller last week, watch them to be really, really physical with Kelsey at the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he doesn't want the smoke. I'm not saying he's a soft player, but he's not necessarily Rob Gronkowski in that he wants to be a part of that sort of physical game.
Right. And do you think that with all this newfound running back depth, well, it's actually not that new, that they'll go with a 2 running back formation on Sunday?
Well, that was something that Belichick hinted at earlier on in the week. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is that the Patriots know that they have tons of depth and great talent at the running back position. And really the only way to utilize all of that is potentially to play a lot more in that pony package with two running backs on the field. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the pony package, to be honest, because statistically it's really not bared out great numbers for the Patriots. The main reason why is that if you have two running backs on the field, it's usually a two running back, three wide receiver type of package, and it leads to a lot of short passes because they only are protecting with five guys on the offensive line without a tight end, and the running backs are involved in the route combination, so they're not necessarily staying into run block or pass block. So I think the biggest thing is that a lot of it is kind of swing passes out of the backfield, screen passes, short, quick throws because they don't have that offensive line, they do have the offensive line, but they don't have the protection scheme with more than five guys. So it's got to come out quick. And I think that's the biggest reason why we haven't seen that pony package really produce great numbers for him. But maybe this is the week where it finally turns it around a little bit.
We'll take a couple more questions here. We have a few about Dalton Keene and whether or not we'll finally see him in action this Sunday against the Chiefs.
That's another good question. I mean, Belichick with the rookies this morning, how hard it is for the rookies, how difficult it is. No preseason games. They're nowhere near where they were at in a normal year. That's what he said to me this morning. And, you kind of take that at face value and you say, okay, well, probably going to be a little bit longer before we start to see guys like Dalton Keene. What I'm really interested in seeing with Dalton Keene is what we saw in camp was not necessarily downfield route running, but just those leaks out into the flat, getting out the backside of the formation, chipping on the line of scrimmage and then releasing into a short route. He was able to then take the ball in his hands and look pretty good after the catch on those kind of short schemed throws. So that's what I hope that he can bring to this offense, because N'Keal Harry's sort of been in that role at times and it hasn't really necessarily worked out. So maybe Keene's somebody that can do those sort of things for this offense.
Will Damian Byrd be used as more of a deep threat in Kansas City, do you think?
Well, he has been used a little bit as a deep threat. I know he hasn't been throwing the ball all that much down the field, but he does a lot. And if you watch it on tape, does a lot of taking the coverage with him, right? A lot of these teams nowadays play single high post safety, and running a player, whether he's zone or man, running somebody at that post safety can really occupy the coverage and take the coverage with him down the field. And that's when you see those opportunities open up underneath and at the intermediate level for Edelman and Harry and those guys. So he has been a factor, I think bigger, more so in a lot of ways than Philip Dorsett at taking the top off the defense and making them at least respect the post or respect the go ball from him. I think Damian Byrd's played really, really well. And I don't really see anything that he needs to necessarily do much better than what he's doing, because I don't expect him to be Antonio Brown. You know what I mean? Like, I expect him to kind of be this sort of guy. And I think he's playing the role exactly how they want him to play it right now.
Question on how important it is to keep Patrick Mahomes inside of the pocket on Sunday.
Yeah, he's a really great improviser, but he's really great everywhere. I've looked at the stats of, blitz him, don't blitz him, keep him in the pocket, don't keep him in the pocket. What's the best way to sort of funnel bad throws from Patrick Mahomes? And honestly, there isn't one. He's just good at it all. I think the one thing that you can do against him, though, is that you can force his hand into checking the ball down or handing the football off. And that's what I'm interested to see. I wrote about it today in my game plan about the Patriots going with the old Peyton Manning playbook, the Peyton method is what I called it, which is when they basically put two deep safeties 20 yards off the line of scrimmage. All the corners, all the safeties are back, and they're just absolutely begging Peyton to hand the ball off, right? Just don't do whatever you do, just don't throw it, right? And that's exactly what I think we could see at times. If it starts to get out of hand, if it starts to get crazy with the man coverage and Patrick Mahomes is just kind of shredding their man coverages, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots go with the game plan that just begs Patrick to just hand the football off to Clyde Edwards-Helaire and live with it, whatever yards he gets.
Well, if you're still craving some Patriots-Chiefs content, because we still have a couple Devin Asiasi questions coming in that we went over already, we have a full video breaking down the rookie tight ends for this Sunday on our website at clnsmedia.com, as well as tons of other key matchup videos previewing Cam's day against Kansas City on Sunday. So check all of that out as well on our Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. which you should already be subscribed to. For Evan Lazar, I'm Sierra Goodwill. We'll see you next time.